We're delighted to have you here, Malcolm. Thank you very much for your session on
pleasure.
negotiation. Can you give us an overview of what your session included?
Yeah, the session starts generally about how to plan a negotiation from a point of view of your own sense of value. It's very important in the United Kingdom that we have a sense of value, a sense of self-worth. And once you get that right in your organisation, maybe with some reinforcement, with sunshine meetings, then you can start to get that value across in your language. And our language in this country has to be a lot more assertive than it is naturally. We often apologise for our pricing or our fee when we shouldn't be really. So it's about that assertiveness about getting the pricing right and then thinking about what are the trades that might make the price negotiable at the end of the day. So that's fundamentally what this session's about.
Brilliant. And so when somebody is going into a negotiation environment, how would they plan for that, and how would you open a negotiation?
I think there's a real toolbox of planning, because I think that's something that some people aren't used to, and preparation is critically important. My contention is, Nicky, that the planning is probably more important than the execution. People think negotiations about being in a room and shooting from the hip and making things up on the hoof, but it isn't really. It's about effective planning. What's your limit? What's your walk away point? What's your plan B? What's your opening position? How are you going to justify it? What's your aim for that meeting? And what are you going to do if you don't get it?
Yeah, well, they say if you fail to prepare, prepare to fail.
Yeah, I know, exactly right.
So planning is very important.
It is.
Yeah.
Probably the most important thing, to be honest.
Okay. And when the conversations are underway, I mean, what's the most important part of that negotiation conversation?
To listen. Ask questions and listen, and the brilliant use of pausing, really. What you've got to do when you state something, when you assert a position, you've got to wait for a response. We tend to think silence is a tacit rejection of our position, and it isn't. They may be just thinking, they may be playing a game, but you've got to play that game with them. So the ability to pause for several seconds is really difficult, and it's a key skill of a good negotiator.
Okay, thank you. And when you say listen, are there particular questions that should be asked?
I think obviously you need a mixture of closed and open questions, but if you can start to pre-plan in your planning phase some open questions which you wouldn't normally think to ask, it expands the conversations out and gets to real needs, which I think is really important, because what you're really trying to satisfy is that client's needs or that person's needs against what you can deliver. So to ask lots of open questions and pre-plan them, relevant, is essential.
Brilliant, thank you. And when it comes to closing the negotiation conversation, do you have any tips around closing?
I think closing always seems to be a difficult thing for people to achieve, because it's like, the analogy is, it's like jumping off a cliff. I've suddenly got to ask for the order, or ask for a response, or ask for a commitment, and that does sound hard. And there's lots of techniques of closing, but if you negotiate in the way that I do my session, you close by stages. So we've discussed volumes, Nicky, so that's agreed. We've discussed the way you're going to pay me. We've discussed the specification. So I think with what we've got on the table in front of us now, we can agree. Is that okay with you? So it's a really nice gradual process of assimilation of the structure of the tradables that you've done.
Okay.
So that works really well.
What would you say is the best way to overcome objections?
I think there's three ways, Nicky, to overcome objections. One of the things that I talk about in the session is developing great stories. And stories give the listener the opportunity to understand there's a social proof to what your value system is. So once you tell a story, people think, well, that's my story as well, and I want to belong to that group. So that's a really nice way of handling objections. For instance, the objection, your price is too high. Other people have said that, but when they've eventually worked with us, they've found this. It's a really great way of handling objection. So that sort of feel, felt, found. I know how you feel. Others have felt the same way, but when they work with us, they found this. Because to my mind, it's added value that's important and not price per se.
Yes.
So that's the best way to do it, to develop 5 current great stories.
Brilliant, thank you. Are there any other questions that I should have asked you that I haven't yet around negotiation?
The key skills of a negotiator, maybe.
Yes, yeah,
is
brilliant.
to have patience and have integrity and make it fun.
Right, thank you.
My pleasure.